Hi, this is Katie. In today's video, I'm going to talk about some of the sacrifices that I made to have my lifestyle of traveling a lot and living in my car a lot. So a lot of you guys know that I've lived in this little car on and off, but for about 10 years. And I did a lot of road trips, a lot of solo travel, a lot of driving around this country while also sometimes sleeping in my car. And I got into a little conversation last fall or last summer or so with a couple of you guys in the comment sections of another video when I was talking about priorities and being honest with ourselves about the choices that we make in life and what really are choices and what really is forced on us and all that kind of stuff. Just being honest about that so that we can figure out our own priorities for our own life and that we can take control of what we can take control of and then let go of the things we can't take control of. And I talked about that in the comments a little bit with a couple of you last year, and it kind of sparked a little bit of an argument. There were some people who didn't like what I was saying, but obviously we're all not going to agree on everything, and that's okay. It's okay if we all have different opinions. However, there are some times where we might get a little argumentative about something that we have a difference of opinion on because we don't want to actually think about if the other person is right or not. And so there were one or two people who said something along the lines of how I have never had to sacrifice anything, how I don't have any responsibilities, how I can just do whatever I want in my life. And maybe they didn't say those exact words, but they insinuated a lot of it. And they definitely did say you don't have any responsibilities, you wouldn't know what it's like. And so I thought about making a video, and then now it's just almost a year later, but I am making this video now just about a couple of the sacrifices that I made to have my lifestyle. This is not bragging. This is not for sympathy. This is none of that. This is just so that we can kind of understand a little bit more about people who have different lives. That's all it is. Because we all sacrifice. Every single one of us sacrifices things to have the life that we have. And I just want to kind of remind you that just because someone has a different lifestyle than you does not mean that it's easier, does not mean that someone gave it to them, does not mean that they did not sacrifice anything, does not mean that they're just doing whatever's fun for them and they don't know what responsibilities are. None of that. It could mean those things, of course, but it generally doesn't. It generally, in my opinion, just means that we get to choose at least some of what our life is, And a lot of people think that, oh, well, no, I have to have this 9-to-5 job. Even though I really wish I could travel, I have to have these jobs. And here's the thing. I still believe it's a choice. Even if it's an obvious choice, even if it's the most obvious choice in the world of, yes, I went to med school and I love being a doctor and I love the practice that I work in. So that's why I can't travel. Even if that's the choice, you know what? You're still making a choice. You are still making the choice to stay at your job, even if it seems super obvious. And I know sometimes, again, especially if you've watched my channel for a while or if you subscribe to my other channel called Underthinking, that's more about mindset and the thoughts we have and how we treat people and the words that we use. I really think that one of the most important thoughts that we can have and one of the most important group of ideas and group of words that we can use is just admitting the choices that we have. That's it. Admitting the priorities that we have, admitting the choices that we have, and admitting the choices that we end up making. And I'm also just a really big believer in we don't know what someone else's life is because we're not living it, especially when you see it online because you're only getting a tiny little glimpse of someone else's life. But even if you know someone in person, sometimes people hide their emotions or hide the hard choices. Or a lot of people do sacrifice things and make priorities for what they know is best for them. So there are going to be people who have a family who are going to sacrifice their own dreams of whatever, some fancy job they want or traveling, whatever, but they are going to sacrifice that because their priority is keeping their family in one house for, the 18 years that their kids are growing up or whatever that is. But it's just still being aware of the choices that we're making instead of just kind of oh, well, I have kids, so I can't travel. Something like that. No, some people do travel with kids, so it's obviously possible, but that does not mean that it is for everyone. It doesn't mean that it's everyone's priority or even a good idea for everyone. And so that's kind of, again, where it doesn't get into I can't travel because I have kids. I wish I could, but I can't. It's more that what are the priorities in your life? What choices are you making? And what type of sacrifices are going to line up with your priorities? And so everyone's life is different. And I remember one of the topics I talked about that got some people a little riled up was how I talked about how it's possible to travel when you have children. I didn't say it's right for everyone to do that. I didn't say it's good. I didn't say it's easy. I didn't say everyone should. I just said it's possible. And a lot of people got mad at me for saying that because I don't have my own children. And I'm whether I have my own children or not doesn't matter, that the idea is still possible, that people do travel with children. My family traveled when I was a child. Like, it's possible, but again, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's right for everyone. I'm not saying everyone should. And I'm definitely not saying it's everyone's priority. I'm just saying that it's a possible idea. And so anyway, I know that I'm getting like really into this right now, and honestly, this kind of talk is more what I talk about on my Underthinking channel. I don't really talk about this kind of stuff on here anymore. However, since this video is more about my sacrifices for traveling, I wanted to put it on this channel. But basically, I'm on here and I'm on my other channel just to remind us that, like, not in everything, of course not, but in a lot of things we do have choices. And it is really good, I think, my personal opinion, obviously you can disagree, but my personal opinion, I think it's good to admit when we have a choice to make and we're just making a choice versus when something is forced on us. And some choices in life are going to be really hard to make, but that does not mean that they're wrong. It doesn't mean that they're right. It doesn't mean anything. It just means that some things are hard, some things are easier, some things are more obvious choices. And so I think that there are just some people who have seen a couple of my videos who just think, oh, she just travels a lot. Clearly her, family gave her money, or she just doesn't have any responsibilities or whatever. Like, they just think like either that it was easy for me or that it was handed to me or that I just have nothing else going on, so I'm just traveling. And it's like, no, that's not it at all. All the money that I spend on gas and food and all my bills and everything is money that I'm making through YouTube. And even in the past, it was through other jobs that I had, like I don't have a trust fund or anything like that. That's not what's funding my travel. I worked to make money to travel. And then in terms of like responsibilities, oh, you don't have responsibilities because you don't have a mortgage. Fair, I don't have a mortgage. That is something that is a huge responsibility for some people. However, that's not the only responsibility that exists, like I definitely do have other bills. And you know what? I think a big responsibility is that I think some people overlook having character, working on yourself. And some people might be like, oh, well, I'm too busy doing other responsibilities. I don't have time to work on myself. Okay, but that doesn't mean that me doing it is wrong, But no, I definitely do have bills and I definitely do work very hard for myself. If anything, I work a lot more than 40 hours a week most weeks. Not every week, but a lot of weeks I work way more than 40 hours a week. And I love it. I love my job. And so it's not a complaint. Again, this video is not complaining or pity party or anything like that. It's more just a reminder that everyone has different lives and it's okay. That's it. It's just okay if you have a different life than someone else. And even if someone has a life that you think looks really cool, they probably still worked really hard for it, because I think it's so easy to think that person's, if we're using travel as the example, that person travels a lot. Their life is so easy and fun. No, their life might be fun and it might be easy now, but it does not mean that it was not hard work to get there. And it does not mean that they're not consistently and still doing hard work to keep that lifestyle, I just really do think it's easy to say, oh, that person's just lucky or that person has it so easy or whatever, when in reality, some people actually just do work really hard for what they have. Not everyone, but most people do, And what you're working hard for is just different than what I'm working hard for. That's all it is. We just are working towards different things. And so anyway, I know that I'm like 10 minutes into this video already, but I just think that this topic is important because I don't think that just because someone else is doing something differently than you means that they're wrong. It doesn't mean that you're wrong. It doesn't mean that their life is easy. It doesn't mean that your life, it doesn't mean any of those things. Those things could be part of it, but it doesn't necessarily mean those things. You know what I mean? Kind of like causation and correlation. Like some things might be connected ideas, but it does not mean that they're causing it, But I am someone who firmly believes that as a person, we are either going to choose comfort or we're going to choose growth. We got to choose one or the other. You cannot really have both. You can, of course, sometimes, in certain circumstances, but in general, you're either sacrificing comfort for growth or you're sacrificing growth for comfort. That is one of my big beliefs. And I would rather sacrifice comfort. I want to grow. I want to have character. I want to live by my morals as much as possible. I want to live for God. I want to live for something that's greater than just me. And I understand how common it is to have a job that we don't like. Because I've done this before. You have a job you don't like, and then you go home and then you hang out with your boyfriend or your friends, whatever, and then you go to sleep. And if that is a life that you feel like, yes, this is for me, then that's great. But I know there are some people who have that life and they don't like it. But instead of sacrificing their comfort of that to go work for something else, they just sit in the comfort even if they don't like it. Isn't that so weird about our brains? Like, we'd rather stay in what we know than work for something else that might be better for us. That is a very common thing that our brains like to do. Our brains don't like growth. Our brains don't like change. They want to just stay alive and stay comfortable. And so it's very easy to stay in whatever we have right now. Even if we don't like it, it's still easier to stay in it. I understand that. I've done that so many times. We all have. But again, that's why I think it's so important to be honest with ourselves as much as we can, to be like, okay, is what I'm doing right now, whether it's, someone that you're casually dating, whether it's the friend you hang out with all the time, whether it's the church you go to, the job you have, the hobbies you have, the way you're exercising, the way your diet is, whatever it is, whatever part of your life it is. I think it's just good to think every once in a while, is this what's actually healthy for me? Is it what God wants me to be doing? Is it a way that I feel led to help the greater good and to help other people? Is it something that's helping me grow? And if we're honest with ourselves, I think a lot of what we're doing is probably not helping us grow anymore. And maybe it's not what God really wants us to be doing. And maybe it's not helping us help other people. We might just be doing it because we've been doing it for so long. We're just used to it. And I get it. I get why that's so easy, but I don't always think, and arguably I rarely think that easy means right. Rarely. Because again, I think that if we want to grow as people, we have to get out of our comfort zone. And that just means that it's going to be something difficult. I think I read something recently that you can either do something difficult now to have something easy later, or you can do something easy now that will lead to something difficult later. And so again, I'm not saying that having easy parts of your life is bad, but I'm saying that trying to choose every single easy path will probably lead to more difficult things later. And sometimes we got to do the more difficult things now. And also to get what we want, to have the priorities that we want, or again, that we know are right for us. Generally, when I say what we want, I generally mean what we feel led to, what we know is right for us, what is healthy for us, A lot of that is priorities and a lot of that is sacrifice. If I have a priority right now, if my number one priority right now was to buy a house, it's not, but if that's what it was, I would have to sacrifice a lot of stuff to start saving up money or to start working more or whatever. Again, I'm not saying this for me. I'm saying for just anyone who's buying a house, right? You might start sacrificing not going out to eat as much. You might start sacrificing spending a lot less on groceries. And maybe you generally go on a couple trips a year, but maybe the next year you're not going to save up that money. Maybe you go out with your friends every couple nights and go spend $100 at the bar, and maybe you're not going to do that as often. Maybe you're going to do it, once or twice a month instead of once or twice a week. We sacrifice things. But I think that if we're doing them for the right reasons, then they can be healthy and they can lead us to what our priority is. Because I think that's one of the biggest parts in life. My priority is living for Jesus. And so the next part of that is doing what I think that God wants me to be doing. And so of course that leads to a lot of sacrifice. Living for God means that we are sacrificing a lot here on earth because we cannot be living for God and living for the world. It's a totally different mindset and different focus. So that does lead to a lot of sacrifices of maybe not doing what everyone else in this world does because we are living for a different purpose. And so the reason that I wanted to make this video, it is so long and I didn't even get to the sacrifices part yet, but the sacrifice part is going to be pretty quickly. I'll just kind of list them. But I just really want to talk about this topic. Again, not to bash people or put people down. You guys know I never do that. I'm just talking about my opinion and what I believe in my life. But I also believe that this is more of a general idea for a lot of people. If we can just be honest with ourselves about what our priorities are, then we can also be honest about what our sacrifices are. And I think it's good to have that focus of both of those things. What's your priority? What's your goal? And being aware of what you're going to sacrifice to get it. And again, that's not to brag to people, oh, I'm sacrificing so much. No, it's also not something to get pity for. It's just making choices in your life, And I think a lot of people do talk about these things to get praise or to get pity, but I don't. I talk about these things just as realistic things that I think could be healthy for us as people who want to grow and want to learn and want to live the fullest that we possibly can, And so I do think that a lot of that includes sacrificing. But I think no matter what life we are living, we are sacrificing something. And so anyway, can you guys tell I could talk about this kind of stuff for such a long time because I just think it's so important to be honest with ourselves. It's really easy to lie to ourselves to make our lives easier or to stay comfortable, but I think it's so much more important to be as honest as possible so that we can do what's right instead of just doing what's easy. And sometimes those line up, but a lot of times they don't. And I would much rather do what's difficult than just do something just because it's easy, And so I wanted to travel because I loved traveling. I was 26 when I started going on really long road trips and stuff. I'd say maybe, 80, 90, probably around 90% of my travels have been by myself. Honestly, maybe even a little bit more than that have been by myself. Growing up, I thought that I was gonna be married in my early 20s and move to the suburbs and just have that kind of life. And that just didn't end up happening. And then my priorities changed. And now this is where I am, So now I'm 36 and I'm currently living in a house. I'm actually moving in a couple days somewhere else, but I have had this transient nomadic lifestyle for 10 years. Again, I think some people either wouldn't want my life, which of course I totally get. Most people wouldn't want my life of moving around a lot and living in my car sometimes and stuff. Of course, that's definitely not for everyone. But there are some people who think, oh, she's so lucky. She just gets to travel all the time. And in my opinion, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't get to travel. I chose to make this a priority. And so I understand that my lifestyle is very different than most people. Does that mean that mine's better or worse? No, it just means it's different. And so some of the things that I sacrificed to get to this point were literally doing my own thing and wanting to get on the road and wanting to move around a lot and wanting to work for myself and all that kind of stuff, especially, 10 years ago. Honestly, I started doing a lot of work for myself 15 years ago and doing online stuff, transcribing and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't very popular back then. I know it's really popular now, but it wasn't very popular back then. And so that was going against social norms for working for myself, going on solo road trips, sleeping in my car as a single girl in my 20s. Back then, 10, 12 years ago, that was not common. 15 years ago, that was not common. So I had to sacrifice listening to our culture, listening to what society says is normal or even cool. Back then, living in a car and going on solo road trips was not cool back then. I know it's cooler now to live in a van and all that kind of stuff, but back then it wasn't cool. It wasn't. I liked it. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't societal cool. The social norm was to get a job and have a family and get married and buy a house. That was the social norm. Again, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that was the social norm. But for me, again, when I was younger, that is kind of what I thought that I was going to have. But then by my mid-20s, I was like, no, I don't think so. That's not me, at least at that time, I might, in 2 years from now, who knows? I might be married with a house. I have no idea. But at least for this past, 10, 12 years, that was not for me. And I think that anyone who goes against social norms for anything, no matter what it is, if you're going against social norms, again, in a healthy way that God is leading you to, that, is healthy and good and helpful for other people, that kind of stuff. If you're going against social norms to do good or to do something that is right, I think that's a good thing. And some people don't agree with that. Okay? This is a difference of opinion. Some people don't agree with that. Some people think that our society knows best and that's why it's normal and common. That it's common because it's right. And so that's the best thing to do. That's what some people believe. I don't personally believe that. And so I'm not going to live my life that way. But making that real big switch from, living in a house, living in one place, not traveling, having a 9 to 5, doing all that and making the switch to being more transient was just a big sacrifice. And again, in lots of ways, but the first one was going against kind of society and what was typical. And I had to learn it all myself because it wasn't popular yet. There were not people on YouTube talking about car life or van life. There were not a ton of people working in social media or anything yet, and so I learned it all myself. Again, am I complaining or bragging? No, I'm just telling you what I did. But again, I talk about it on here in hopes to maybe encourage some of you or remind some of you that there's a lot in your life, not everything, but a lot in your life that is a choice. And every choice we make is going to have sacrifices, but if they're different than the norm, they're going to sometimes seem wrong or seem harder. But I'm just here to tell you that just because something is typical or societal normal does not mean that it's right for everyone. Okay. So I want to remind you that if you have a goal in your life, but it's a little different than what everyone else is doing, but again, it's healthy and it's good and it's helpful, I say go for it. It's going to be weird. There might be people who try to bring you down because of it, or there might be people who say that you're crazy or say that you're dumb. But if you know it's right and you know that it's good and you know God's leading you there, then do it. Okay. I just want to encourage you guys a little bit, but that's what this whole video is we all are going to have different lives and that's okay. So we don't need to judge people or put them down. We just need to understand that we're all different and that that's okay. Especially if we are all working on what's best, because what's best for me is not going to be what's best for you in terms of lifestyle and stuff like that. So anyway, the first sacrifice was literally listening to any part of society. That was the first sacrifice. The second one, and I would say the main one, was comfort. Comfort mentally, comfort physically. Obviously, I lived in this car I probably slept in this car, I don't really know, but hundreds and hundreds of times. I'm pretty short. I'm 5'3". However, this is a Toyota Yaris. It is a small car. I cannot super stretch out like I can in a queen size bed. The comfort of taking a shower in my own shower without shower shoes on instead of having to shower at the gym. That's a human comfort that I sacrificed. I sacrificed not sleeping in a queen bed. I sacrificed not living in a house. I sacrificed those types of comforts. And again, I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining at all. Those are sacrifices that I was fine to sacrifice. I was 100% fine sacrificing those things. I was sacrificing not having my own bathroom, not having my own kitchen, not having a home address where I knew I was going to go home to every night. I sacrificed all those things. And I was fine with that because I knew that the traveling, the experiences I was going to have traveling way outweighed the discomfort of not having my own kitchen or not having my own bed or my own bathroom. The pros, the joy of the adventure and the driving around and everything that I was going to learn on the road and everything that I was going to do while living in a car totally outweighed those types of creature comforts, And so for me, I didn't mind. I really did not mind. Every time that I've showered at a Planet Fitness or at a campground or something, I don't care. I really don't care. Is a home shower a little bit more comfortable, a little bit bigger? You don't have to carry everything with you? Sure. But it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Is using your own bathroom a little bit easier or more comfortable than using a public bathroom? Yeah, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Not to me. I am not someone who's going to pick like having my own shower versus traveling and having to use a public shower. That's just not me, I'd rather do great things and then again have to sacrifice some things that might be comfortable. So there were a lot of those physical comforts that I just had to say, all right, I'm not going to have those because I'm going to live in a car or I'm going to go on long road trips, But then also mental comforts as well, and I also sacrificed relationships in a lot of ways. I've had a couple steady boyfriends, but I know that dating has been a lot harder for me because I'm on the road, and a lot of people don't want to date someone who lives in their car or who lives on the road or who they don't know where they're going to be in 6 months. A lot of people don't want to date someone like that, so I did sacrifice that in probably a bigger way than I even really realized because I got so used to it. I got used to the sacrifice after a while. But the same with friends, like I do have some really great friends and some of them that I've known for a really long time. And so we've stayed friends no matter where I've lived or where I've traveled. But I know just kind of obviously, if I stayed in, maybe not obviously, but probably at least, if I stayed in one spot, I probably would have had more friends, more consistent friends, friends that I see all the time. Same with the church. Yes, I've gone to church. And yes, I've watched sermons online. And yes, I read my Bible and I pray and I can do all those things by myself. But having a home church that I go to every single Sunday and I have a group of friends there that I get lunch with and that I have gone there for years and I'm part of a church, I don't have that. And I haven't really, a couple times, but I haven't really had like a home church that many times over the last 10 years because of how much I move around. And I even know that having a biblical group of friends is incredibly important. But that is something that I could have obviously still done that online or, through texting or whatever. But obviously it just is something that was harder because I was not at like a home church. And then kind of going back to like my car, I obviously sacrificed space when I sacrificed the things that I owned because I wanted everything I own besides a couple things I have at my mom's house. Like I have like old yearbooks and a couple things like that at my mom's house, but everything else that I own is in my car. Not right this second, but when I was on the road, it was. And even right now, everything I own can fit in my car. And then even when I moved around, sometimes I would sell things and then rebuy them depending where I was living, depending what I needed, but even now, like I just really did sacrifice owning a lot of things and having a lot of space, but I was okay doing those things. You know what I mean? Like for me, they're definitely sacrifices and they definitely were a huge change from what I was doing in my teens and my early 20s. But the thing about this is that having all those sacrifices, and there's more, but at least those main ones that I listed, sacrificing those things led me to my goal, led me to the lifestyle that I really enjoyed having. And am I going to keep doing it? I don't know. Am I going to change? Am I going to, go live in a house one day? Or am I going to stop traveling a lot? I don't know. But at least for, the past 10 years, I made the sacrifices of the people around me and the things that I owned and my mindset. My mindset when I was younger was so drastically different. And I know that for some people, this video is going to either be annoying or they're going to get mad at me again. I know that I cannot please everyone, but I also kind of understand that sometimes, and hear me out, and this is going to be hard to hear, okay? I understand that. But sometimes when we hear something from someone else, especially from either a stranger or a content creator, someone online, or someone who's talking in general, because right now I'm talking in general. There are always exceptions to things, obviously, but I'm talking in general that if you have goals, you're going to have sacrifices, and like that I don't believe that you can be in your comfort zone and grow at the same time. I think you got to pick one, and I wanted to grow. And so I got out of my comfort zone. I did a lot of different things. Again, when I was younger, I hated traveling. I hated driving. I had a ton of stuff. Like I had to completely change my mindset, get rid of a lot of the things that were holding me back to completely change my life. And I know that this is going to be hard to hear for some of you, but if me telling you my story and me hoping that I encourage you, again, I know not everyone's going to agree, but me hoping to encourage you and me just telling you about my life, if it's something that makes you angry or that you want to get mad at me or that you want to start attacking me or telling me that I'm wrong, here's the thing. There's a very big difference between we just don't agree, we have different lives, that's okay. But if you disagree in a way that you kind of want to attack me, that might mean that it's actually something that maybe you need to work on internally. Maybe. Because I believe that if someone calls you stupid, but you know that you're not stupid and you are confident in the fact that you're not stupid, then someone calling you stupid is probably not going to bother you. But if someone calls you stupid and you actually grew up hearing that you were stupid, and so it's actually kind of like a pain point for you, and you're actually, sometimes you do question your intelligence, because you kind of have like that weird upbringing and maybe people were mean to you and all that kind of stuff, then maybe as an adult, if someone calls you stupid, because you don't have that confidence, it's more likely to bother you. And maybe you did, grow up thinking differently, or maybe you actually do wish that you sacrificed more, or maybe you are in your comfort zone right now and you know that you are, and you don't want to admit that you are, so you'd rather just tell me that I'm wrong. Maybe. Again, this is not everyone. This is not everyone, of course, but there might be some people who get mad if someone else tells them that, oh, you're in your comfort zone right now. No, I'm not. Sometimes if you want to get defensive, it's actually because you are. And I know admitting when we're wrong or admitting that we might need to change something is really difficult, but how are we going to grow if we don't? I just really hope that if you have a goal, if you have a priority, if you know what that priority is, that you can just be aware of the sacrifices that you need to make to get it. And again, a lot of those are going to be out of your comfort zone. And so I think having any goal, you're just going to have to give up some comforts. And some of the comforts might just be staying where you are right now, even if you don't even like where you are right now. But sometimes staying in what we know, even if we don't like it, is just still easier than changing. But I just think if we can, in certain ways, again, it's so different for everyone, but it's really good to admit the things that are going on in our lives and really see what we can do to prioritize the things that are important, that are healthy, that we can help other people with, and just see what that means about sacrificing. Because some sacrifices are actually going to be really, really healthy, but some of them might just be more neutral, and some of them end up, if we can admit it, being unhealthy sacrifices. Maybe because we're purposefully, but maybe accidentally prioritizing something that's unhealthy. And so that means that we might be sacrificing something that is healthy, maybe we're prioritizing going out with our friends all the time, but that means we're sacrificing potentially our bank accounts or our health because maybe we're drinking too much or we're spending too much money or something, So anyway, I just think it's really good to be aware of as much as we can and be as honest as we can, especially with ourselves. And I just think that that's one of the things that can be the most helpful, especially when we're trying to grow and just see what we can do in this life. So anyway, I know this was a very long video. I hope that you guys enjoyed. Please let me know in the comments what you think about this. Again, I always hope that we can be nice to each other in the comments, even if we disagree. I just think that we can still be kind, but yeah, let me know what you think about this in the comments. I really hope that you're subscribed. I do talk a lot about traveling and lifestyle and vlogs and stuff like that, but also if you like these more kind of mindset videos, I do have a second channel called Underthinking. I'll have the link in my description. I talk more about this kind of stuff over there. But again, I just wanted to talk about this on my main channel because it had to do with traveling and just kind of almost reacting to some comments that I got last year about you don't sacrifice anything or you don't have any responsibilities. And it's well, part of that was because I chose to not have certain responsibilities. I chose to not buy a house. I chose to not have my own children. So some of those are still choices that I made. I'm not saying that I'm right and you're wrong or that you're right and I'm wrong. I'm just saying that we have different lives. Just because someone has different responsibilities or different things they're doing in their lives does not mean that they're wrong and does not mean that even things are easier because you don't even really know how that person got to that point or what they're struggling with now or what they wish they had now. We just really never know. So anyway, that's going to be it. Thank you so much for watching and I hope that you have a wonderful day. I love you. Jesus loves you and I'll talk to you later. Bye.